Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be going over some helpful tips and information on how to heal grief. And this video is specifically created for grieving mothers. So the title of this video is Sideways Elephant, Grief Healing for Mothers and Women. So in mediumship, if you didn't know, if you've been on my channel for a while, you hear me talk about symbology very often. In your own life, you might hear from spirit as symbols or signs, or what's more common in today's society, we hear of like pennies from heaven or feathers that appear just randomly, and we know it's our angels speaking to us. So, yes, spirit does speak in symbology and signs. This is the language of spirit in the energetic world. If life were to be just this easy cakewalk, we would know everything in every moment. But the reality is we come here to learn and evolve. So we experience difficulty here, loss, trauma, and we have free will. We have the ability and power to create from our thoughts, from our desires, from our hearts. So there's many options, and with that, spirit can't live our lives for us. Okay, so the messages we receive aren't always as clear. A lot of times it's very subtle when we communicate with the light. It's almost that thought in our own head, our voice that sounds like ourselves, but it's so intuitive, it's guiding, it's loving, that we often miss that voice within us. We miss the signs, we miss the symbols, and we kind of get stuck in patterns, and we have to re retrack our steps. We have to sit, get still, and reconnect with that truth that we missed before, and now it's louder. We hear it clear now. So in mediumship, when I am going into a reading with clients, sometimes I see my symbol of a sideways elephant. This is my symbol for a woman or a mother that is grieving. So if you've come across this video, I hope that this speaks to you. And if you haven't lost a child, it may speak to you as well as just as a woman that maybe went through a miscarriage or is struggling with infertility, has had an abortion. This video isn't necessarily for, women that have just specifically lost a child. Grief for mothers is a very expansive and broad category of women that feel a deep sense of loss tied to their creation, whether it be their child or a child that didn't come through all the way. This video may also speak to women who have lost a parent. And a lot of times in today's society where we have a parent-child relationship, a lot of children feel like the parent of their parent. So when women sometimes grieve the loss of a parent, it can feel like they've lost a child in a sense. So I'm making this video because women tend to grieve differently than men. So more specifically, mothers tend to grieve a little bit differently than fathers. Not to say that fathers don't grieve from the loss of a child as deeply as mothers do. I'm not saying that. I'm going to actually make a separate video for fathers and men specifically, because it's so important for both men and women, mothers and fathers alike, to receive messages like this today that help us to heal and process some of the most traumatic parts of our lives, phases of our lives, chapters. But there is a distinct difference in how women and men grieve, how mothers and fathers grieve. So today's video is the Sideways Elephant Grief Healing for Mothers. Please like and subscribe to my channel if you like this type of content. Um, I consider this a sanctuary, a safe haven for light workers, for anyone that's going through a transformative healing process or spiritual journey that they are diving deep into. So I'm glad we've connected today. Let's dive right in. So why do I receive the symbol of a sideways elephant? Elephants across cultures are known as a maternal symbol. The nature of elephants is amazing, especially elephant mothers. They're known to have a very strong, distinct nurturing and parenting style. They are, uh, mother elephants are one of the most impactful teachers to baby elephants. They teach them everything that they need to know and survive on their own. We can see in elephant communities when a mother elephant dies, other mother elephants will step in and kind of take on the orphaned baby elephant as their own. So they're often seen in symbology as a maternal energy for their natural nurturing nature that they give. So when I have a mother that's, let's say, departed on the other side, come through in a reading for a client, usually the symbol I receive for I'm a deceased mother on the other side is a duck, like a mother duck. That's just the way that I perceive it. But when I see an elephant, this can mean maternal energy in any capacity. It could be grandmother. But when I see an elephant to its side, this is how I know that the person in front of me, my client, is in a state of grief as a mother to some capacity. This can even be a woman that doesn't have any children, okay? Because a lot of times women that choose not to have children or that can't have children sometimes feel a deep sense of loss, deep sense of unfulfillment, that something is still open that we need to close, unfinished business. I'm not saying all women that choose to not have children grieve, but I do see a large percent of women that are older in their older lives where they do feel a sense of loss and grief from never having a child. So whenever I see sideways elephant, this is a very sacred symbol to me, indicating that I need to sometimes slow down or be more sensitive, that this is very, very serious sense of grief that is an opportunity for me to be a channel to help heal, which is always an honor. This work I do is an honor, it's sacred. And so one of the first things that I'm called to share is that if we are on this path towards healing the loss of a child, it is as we know, and you may watch this, an unimaginable chapter of a woman's life. Okay, one of the first things that you want to do is focus on your own inner child. Okay, so maybe you've been called to this video and you're still watching at this point and you don't have children, you haven't lost a child, or this title of this video doesn't even really resonate, but you're still here. What's important to understand is that grief is part of this existence in this earth realm. We do come here to actually learn how to process grief, to evolve. We come here to feel loss, which is an illusion. Um, our soul is eternal, so there really is no loss. There is no pain and suffering when we're on the other side in higher realms. Um, and so here we come to kind of experience what is the opposite of ourselves. So let's say maybe you don't have a loss of a child yet, but you are going through a spiritual journey. The first thing we always want to do is focus on healing the inner child. If you've come across this video before grief happens, this is great for you because if we experience something painful or traumatic from more of a healed state, it is a lot less difficult to begin the healing process when the grief hits or the loss strikes. If we are experiencing grief for the loss of a child, something so traumatic like this, from an unhealed place, or where our inner child is really unhealed, it makes the healing process so much more difficult. Okay, so I'll give you an example. Let's say we have a woman that never healed her inner child, and then she loses, let's say, her son. You might hear her say things like, I've lost my only child that really loved me. But the truth and the reality is she has several other children that really do love her. What this is the woman's form of grief. It's an emotional response, which will happen, but it's also her inner child that was already in a state of woundedness speaking through her. Okay, so the first step on the grieving process is really to heal your inner child, to give the love and nurture to yourself that you may have never had. This also plays a role in a lot of our relationships when we are adults and we have not healed our inner child. A lot of times we can know this as Peter Pan syndrome, and in psychology they call this arrested development, to where you're kind of you feel stuck psychologically or in your spiritual or self development, your emotional development at a time where you experience a significant trauma that kind of kept you frozen in time at that age. So let's say you had a significant experience with your mother abandoning you as at 15, that, she left, packed her bags, and never looked back. That may have been so traumatic for you, and you didn't process it at that time or have the skills or tools necessary to help you process that trauma, which many of us don't have. We learn to cope versus heal. That person may be stuck in time, frozen in time, in arrested development psychologically at age 15, in that phase of, in that stage of feeling abandonment, rejection, loss, and grief. So as an adult, we go on and begin to attract from our subconscious programming from that arrested development stage at 15, the inner child, other relationships that bring us more pain because it's familiar to us as love. That's what we identify love from our parents as: the abandonment, the rejection, the disowning, the feeling not good enough for why they just couldn't love us or show up for us. So then in our adult life, we now have partners and relationships of people that treat us the same way or that lead to the same response because that's what is familiar to us as love. It's really an illusion. It's what's familiar to us that is really bringing forward pain. But our body and our mind, our subconscious, is producing these similar events and relationships with other people that are familiar to us because that's where we feel the safest. Now, just it's clearly not a safe relationship. It's clearly toxic, but the brain and the body will sometimes reject situations that are maybe uncomfortable or unfamiliar. So it's really a coping mechanism that we are in or stuck in, this arrested development. We can't evolve higher as an adult. And then we don't ever really reach those relationships that bring us fulfillment. We never are able to really get to the next level in our career because we self-sabotage. We never are able to fully heal when trauma or grief or something traumatic happens to us again as an adult because we're still kind of stuck in that loop of pain from childhood. And so that's the first thing we really want to do is make sure your inner child is getting cared for, nurtured, and integrated in you, healed, that we've closed the door of childhood, that we have not forgotten. We've healed these parts of ourselves so they are no longer our emotional regulator as an adult. This will help you truly to be able to move forward with the hard times in life as an adult, especially something as traumatic as the loss of a child or grief healing. Okay. So I want to also speak on healing versus coping. In our society, there aren't many tools, and now we live in a day where there's YouTube and the internet. Back in the 1900s, there wasn't a lot of that. So a lot of people's parents today, in this more modern generation, is that a lot of parents were never taught to heal. They were taught to cope. A lot of the baby boomers were really taught to just work, 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 and dismiss your emotions and to not question things and to just do this, do that, and then you'll get the dream, American dream, or the dream job, or dream life, dream family. And that's not necessarily how we heal, to just erase or ignore or escape. Coping is really numbing. Coping is where we distract ourselves with work so we don't have to face the truth or face our emotions or face how we're really feeling. Numbing is usually addicting. It's using some form of medication to say, I feel like shit, so I'm going to take a pill. I feel like crap, so I'm going to drink alcohol. I am feeling angry, so I'm going to suppress it with these drugs because they help me to feel happy. That is escaping. That is a form of coping. And a lot of us, that's all we know when things get hard is how to cope, not how to heal. We're taught this. We see it from our parents, from Hollywood, from everything that we see in society, other people, other friendships. Their family never taught them to heal either, just cope. So we don't really know how to heal as a society. This is where we have a major turning point in our emotional development when we learn how to heal. This is why I always push for you'll hear me speaking on the corrupt education system and how we should incorporate emotional development in early education so that young people know how to heal versus how to cope. Another coping mechanism that we get taught is overgiving, and especially as women. In today's society, we're taught, especially as women, to just give, 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 give. It's seen as an act of selflessness. It's seen as an act of being heroic, maternal, matriarchal. But in reality, a lot of women, they overgive and they don't give enough to themselves. Or a lot of times they give from a wounded state that's not genuine. It's for people pleasing, it's to look good, for validation from someone else outside of ourselves. And the gift giving isn't as genuine as it would be if she were healed. She may not even need to give as much. She may reserve her energy for her own healing, which is what's really needed and what she could do to help herself get out of where she's at now or out of the loop or to the next level. Another form of coping that's very strong, especially in, I would say, the Black community, is we're taught to just stay strong, stay strong. And there's a lot of pride in keeping your head up and don't put your head down because of everything that we've gone through with marginalization, racism, oppression, and our ancestors as well with being enslaved. But this isn't just limited to the Black community. If you were raised in a very militant family, you may have been heard to just suck it up, be strong. This impact of being instrumental is really good for society to where you're very task driven, you just get it done without the emotion or without the feeling. However, that's led to a lot of people when they go through traumas or hard times, or when things get difficult or uncertain or unpredictable, which is life, we tend to just cope with life. We tend to cope with these events. We just stay strong and suck it up. And what that does is it represses truth, it represses the emotions. Well, if you know anything about medical intuition, or let's say disease and healing in general, a lot of diseases, it's a statistic, are caused by stress, the unseen energy, caused by holding on to emotions, the unseen energy. Okay? We can measure it through clairvoyance and we can get different electromagnetic tools to measure someone's aura. But a lot of this is the invisible energy that we hold in our shoulders, that we hold in our hearts. Women hold in their wombs, their ovaries, their uterus, fallopian tubes, vagina. All of that is a portal. It's a carriage. It's a cup. And so, what do we do with cups? We fill them up. What do we do with baskets? You put stuff in it. You carry with your basket. What do you do with your bag? You put it on your shoulder and you carry things. We carry a lot of emotions that we repress if we don't process them. So, that is a form of coping. I think also staying in a state of survival mode. People don't just like, I'm gonna be in a state of survival mode. I'm gonna choose to just be in survival mode. It's a coping mechanism. People aren't we aren't choosing to be in this state. It's just like an autopilot response of coping because we weren't taught or allowed to process things. We weren't given a hand up in the moments where we really needed it. We didn't have the community to help us communicate, feel heard, received, and be able to process with other people healthily. We didn't have the parent that was emotionally stable. We didn't have the tools that taught us that life is ebbs and flows. And we weren't really taught that as a child. You are impulsive as a child. Why? Because you're here to learn how to not be impulsive. You're as a child, you learn how to emotionally regulate, but you don't really come in just not crying. You come in as a baby crying, so you have to learn that behavior of healing. You have to learn healthy coping mechanisms. You have to learn healthy healing. So begin to learn how you are coping and begin to learn how to actually heal. And this video will help you to learn some healthy techniques to help you heal so you can finally have integration and a sense of peace. So coping is a mechanism that works off of illusion to help us feel safe, but it often keeps us staying in patterns that are familiar, as I was just saying, because if we stay in this pattern, it's predictable. Nobody's going to attack me if I just sit here and drink alcohol. I'm safe here. No one's going to come and yell at me. No one's going to come and abuse me. So I'll keep using this as a technique to help me deal with my pain. But that's an illusion. You're really hurting yourself if you sit there and choose to just cope by drinking excess alcohol. From what I see, I think there's really two main tools we can use to help us heal. I call it healing with community or healing with spirit. So a lot of times we think that we need someone else to heal us. That's not true. But also in spirituality, there's always this dichotomy. So healing with community is some of the most profound healing you can actually have. But let's say, you don't have community. Let's say you don't have enough money to get a therapist or to go get that somatic therapy that you've really wanted to get. You always have a free source of healing help. And that's what I call healing with spirit. So I'll break this down a little bit further. Healing with community. Probably one of the most traditional ways we're taught to heal is through traditional therapy. So this would be counselors, psychologists. Sometimes we go into that psychiatry, and I say it like that because, sometimes we do need meds, and we could be grateful for medication as it can be life-saving, but I think a lot of times psychiatric doctors, they do medicate, and it is a form of coping versus actually healing. What I like about therapy and counseling is that there's communication, which is a way and form of healing. It's a way of processing pain, emotions, thoughts, feelings, okay? So consider therapists. Maybe consider therapists that are spiritual or that are mediums or medical intuitives. I hear over and over how traditional therapy didn't really help. A lot of doctors these days, as we see with the shift, I won't spend too much time on it because I've spoken a lot about this, but a lot of doctors or medical professionals are getting fed up because they're given more just so like a script, or they're given parameters to treat people, not necessarily what they feel they need to treat people. They've got to do and prescribe based off of a system that is very broken and that ignores that we're spirits. So you want to find a therapist that understands your spirit. You want to find a therapist that speaks your language, okay? Because there can be a really good therapist over here, but she or he may not speak your language. So when you go in, you're just not resonating. That's okay. It's just like with mediumship. Sometimes, yes, I've got the blockers that are like, read me. But I also have people that we just don't jive. Our language just doesn't speak. And so you want to find a medium that speaks your language. This is key for therapy. So ask your soul to guide you to someone that may help you to process your pain, your trauma. You can also get into more alternative or holistic forms of therapy. I think hypnotherapy is amazing. Find a clinical hypnotherapist that can help you with past life regression so that you can see the relationship and nature of the relationship with the loved one that you just lost. Let's say this is your child. You can go back in time and see different dynamics and characters that you were in together before this life. And it may help you to have a bigger picture of why the event took place or the loss took place now. You'll see that there's patterns tied to past lives playing out now. And if you have awareness of it, you may be able to find a tremendous amount of closure through past life regression. Even traditional hypnotherapy in this life to help you to heal the parts of yourself that are fragmented or unhealed so that you can be more complete and whole now and be able to deal with and heal the current trajectory path of healing that you need to take. So helping you to understand yourself more deeply. I'm also big on somatic therapy. I think this is really important if you are grieving, especially with the loss of a child, because so many mothers, we're going to go through the phases of grief. And I have a few extra stages that I think are more specific to mothers and women. But I do see that women tend to get very, very angry about the loss of their child. Is it feeling like it's an identity loss when it's a parent losing a child, specifically mothers, which can be naturally very, very frustrating and bring forward the emotion of anger. And anger's the perfect opportunity to channel. When we have anger, you want to channel in some way. We're not taught that. We're not taught how to heal anger or process anger. We're taught to just cope with it. And for a lot of women, we're also taught to not show it, brush it under the rug, act like it's not there. And we've got a hormone system within us that can make you a bit more fiery, can make you a bit more, ready to defend and, mama elephant's coming. So somatic therapy helps because we tend to hold grief in our muscles and our body. We tend to hold traumas that are very, very deep in our body as well. And so sometimes when we're going through a healing journey, you might start to actually like exercise and start shaking. Shaking is a form of somatic release, and it's very powerful because think about like you go to work out and your muscles are shaking. Yeah, you might feel weakened, but emotions can weaken your muscles as well. So when you're shaking, you're releasing. And if you've got all of that in and you're seeing that vibrational shake, think about what it's doing within you just sitting there. It's a block. It's heavy. It's a burden. It's always there, even if you don't see it. And the physical shaking is a pretty good representation of you finally releasing. Healing, especially from an unhealed state, will help you relive your pain when we're unhealed. We're reliving it. But when you heal, you release the pain. Okay, so I'll say it again. I think I got it butchered, but like when you're unhealed and you experience a trauma, you relive the pain of the previous trauma plus your current trauma. But when you heal, you release, okay? You release the pain. And that is super important for your healing journey. When we heal, we let go, we process, we no longer hold on to it. And that doesn't mean that you're forgiving, okay? Because statistically, mothers versus fathers, when it comes to grief healing, is women have to remember. They have to remember. A lot of times they'll have scrapbooks or pictures up or altars. They have to remember, while a father may just kind of avoid his emotional feelings and focus more on work. Women will talk about their loss. They'll want to get with other people and talk about their loss. They have to remember. So that is, I think, healthy, but a lot of times we don't want to get into the space of just holding on to the pain. Speak it out is a form of healing, processing it out. But often we go to do that, and the person that we're speaking to doesn't receive what we're saying, doesn't connect with us. So it's really important if you're healing that you have someone in front of you, if you need to speak it out and talk it out, that they receive you, that they connect with you, that they speak your language. They can come by and not only just have this beautiful conversation, but give you a hug that you need. Help you to feel this connection that you're not alone. I hear you, I got you, and I see that you're in pain. And I lift you up with love. That's how we heal. That's how we heal. So therapy is important, and finding the right therapist or the right type of therapy is important as well. So explore different routes, not just the traditional counselor or grief therapist. And there are certain therapists and psychologists that actually work specifically with the grieving to help us to grieve, mainly because grief is in stages and phases, and often mothers they feel very trapped in several phases of it or cycles of phase, okay? So you also want to face grief with compassion and allow your emotions to come forward without judgment. Okay, so just crying without judging, you crying, feeling without guilt for feeling. Okay, this will help you to move forward. Now, let's say we don't have the option to go see a therapist or we don't feel comfortable doing that. You always have healing with spirit. Okay, so healing with spirit is listening to the signs, listening to the symbols. You are never alone. You always have spirit guides. You have a spirit team. You've got angels. And your loved ones do come and visit you in spirit to give guidance, healing, love, and peace. But besides for your loved ones on the other side, you always have the Holy Spirit. You always have God, the Goddess, within you. You've got spirit guides around you that love you. They work for you. They work with you. They guide you. So you're never alone. That's part of the illusion. And it's also an illusion that you need someone else to help heal you. You have got God that can help you, give you answers you need. I'm not saying to dismiss with the community because I say it's extremely important to have healing with community and others. But let's say, I want to say this because we need something in the right now, right? We need answers right now. We need to feel peace right now. Well, you always have God, always. And again, just like sideways elephant, God speaks in symbology and signs. So you have to open yourself up if you just want to work with spirit to help you through the grieving process. You have to open your heart up to being able to receive from spirit. You've got to open your third eye to be able to see through your spiritual eyes and with discernment so that you can help yourself. And spirit might give you that symbol, that says, um, you know, um, water. You just keep seeing symbology or visions of like waterfalls and lakes and rivers and oceans. So what spirit is saying is that, that could mean many things. What is spirit saying with that? But spirit may be showing you that you're holding emotionally a lot of pain. So that could be guiding for you to go journal. That could also be a message for you to go sit in nature by water so that you can begin to open yourself up and process things through that sacred ritual. It may mean you need to take more baths and showers, cold therapy, hot therapy that help you to process how you're feeling, help you to release. Okay, so that's how we heal with spirit. We receive the sign, we receive the symbol, and then we bring action forward. We have discernment with the message, and spirit will guide you to everything you need to know, everything you need to do in order to find a place of peace. Spirits of light, they are about unconditional love. They are about peace and healing. When we lose a loved one, you have to remember that they create their own heaven. They're in bliss. They don't have suffering. They don't have pain. They're more one with Creator. They can go on and create their own constructs and help to create the rest of everything that is. And they think and they manifest instantly. They don't go without. It's just us here that are feeling that separation. So connect with spirit to help you heal. Healing with spirit is free. It's always available, and you may be guided to that other part of healing with community, because you might get that symbol, let's say it was Peter, and you're like, what does Peter mean? Why do I keep hearing Peter? Is this a spirit? Is this an angel? What is this? With time, because grief actually heals with time, it's not something that you can just instantly heal. It takes time because it weighs on your brain and your heart, your actual physical body. So grief healing takes time. So with time, you might start to see that repetitive symbol of Peter, and that's actually a symbol of like Peter Pan syndrome. That spirit's saying to you. And then once you have awareness of what this is, then you can find the knowledge to help yourself. So then you look up Peter Pan syndrome and it really speaks to you. Oh my God, I am stuck in my inner child as an adult. Oh my God, I am really dealing with arrested development, and I it's making this harder for me to finally process this loss, this trauma. So now I'm going to cater to that. Now I'm going to go into healing with community and get a therapist to help me to not have an avoidant attachment style, to help me to not have a dismissive a, a, attachment style or an anxious attachment style. So that's how the angels work. They put the thought in, they put it on your heart, and then you have to make inspired action, intuitive action from that to help yourself. And that's what I call healing with spirit. Spirit will always guide you. Spirit might say, Jojo, go book a reading with Jojo, and then you come in with me and I channel a message for you. And it's one of the most profound experiences you ever have in your life that really helps you to reclaim your sovereignty and peace. Okay. So we'll talk about using mediumship later, but I hear it over and over again that many people find me when I ask, how'd you find me? They say, I don't know why I'm here. I just felt led here. I just felt led. I just felt led. So Spirit does give us these nudges to come in and meet with a healing arts professional or practitioner that can help you to find the closure you're seeking or just be that channel of your angels until you get to a place of being able to communicate yourself, okay, including your loved ones on the other side. So you've got healing with community, healing with spirit. Don't let your healing journey be linear. Seek both, okay? When we heal with others, it's tremendous. It's when we heal from our own work, it's also tremendous, but we do need both, okay? So do the inner work that you desire, that you deeply need, and listen to the guiding hand of spirit. So let's go through the phases of grief. So grief again is not linear. There's many phases, typically around 5. Different psychologists will say different things. I'm going to go through 8 different phases today with you that are specific to women that are grieving the loss of a child. And this is also speaking to, again, those that have had miscarriages, abortions, that are have fertility issues or imbalances. You still have a womb. You still have that portal of connection to a child, whether it be born or unborn, and you may have been, and you probably have been a mother in a previous life, and so all of that remembrance is still within your DNA. All of that is leading to the aching heart of creation from thought, from body, from spirit, of what you have the organs in your body to actually do. And let's say you don't have those organs, but you identify as feminine, female. And I say that meaning you were born female, like maybe you've got breasts and let's say a uterus, but you don't have a vagina, and or you can't have kids, or you are missing ovaries that you were just born with. That can be a significant that can cause a significant amount of grief for a woman that has some of the organs to produce children but not all of them. So I still see you as a grieving mother, in a sense. Energetically, it's still that feeling and longing and yearning of the mother child connection, which this is why it's a whole segment for women, because men don't have that ability to create a child with within them, grow a child from within them. That is something that's sacred to the woman. Um, and so women often cycle through these phases over and over again. And that's okay. Grief takes time. So one of the first stages of grief is denial. We often are like, is this real? Is this happening to me? My whole world just shook. So that's really a form of protective shock. Okay. So denial is the first stage of grief where we're like, it just didn't happen. I can't believe this happened. This isn't real. And that is healthy to go through that first initial shock. We then tend to get into this next stage of being very angry. Why did this happen to me? I am so effing pissed. Why, God? God, did you do this to me? You took away my only child. Um, Anger is part of the healing process. You have to learn to channel your pain. Sometimes the best way to channel pain is through artwork. Think of the best musicians, some of the best songs, came from breakups, came from loss, and it turns into the most beautiful art. So you want to channel your anger, whether it's through artwork, music, painting, crafts, whether it's through somatic work where you're doing like anger rituals where you're just pounding into the earth and screaming, whether you go get kickboxing classes, you're just punching out your trauma, you're fighting a punching bag, you have to channel it. You have to get out that anger. And then once you do, you'll go into the next stage, which is like a bargaining stage of grief, where it's like, if I would have just done this, maybe this would have not happened. We can't bargain with what has been done, what happened. we have to process it. But it is a normal and healthy part of the grief stage where we begin to go through this, our brains begin to bargain. With grief, what's psychological and what it does to the brain is like when you're going through grieving processes, grief is the emotion, but grieving is like the whole process with time. Your brain will go through different stages of memory recall with your loved one. Memories you're recalling, all of your senses will be heightened. You might start to smell, taste, or feel like different memories or sense of them. That's through clairgustance, through heightened sense. Your brain is going through a significant shift and it tries to keep things you back in that familiar. So we will tend to bargain. And what that tend when we get through all of the bargaining, you have enough of it to you're able to actually just feel. You say, I can't bargain, I just can't because it's done, it happened. I have to keep moving forward. And that brings you into the next stage of grief, which is usually some sort of physical response. Many people don't know, but illness, physical illness, is something that tends to accompany grief. I see this more with women than men, but mothers grieving tend to have a more profound physical experience or illness of grief than fathers. Whereas a father may go to work and focus on work and, working on the car, working on business, what have you. A woman, she may tend to just um, kind of have that stagnate in her body, not process it, or be in a chronic state of that pain, and it turns into breast cancer. It turns into illnesses of the brain and the heart and the womb, more specifically. So um, it will affect you physically. Some of the illnesses that accompany grief for both men and women physically are like sleep is a huge one. This tends to affect men and fathers in the grieving process more than women, but sleep, your appetite, your energy levels, you may not want to do anything. You can't do any of your routines. Um, Tension and tightness in the body, pain in the body, immune system, respiratory, circulation imbalances, memory. So, um, depression is a major stage of grief healing. It's a deep sorrow and emotional heaviness that mothers claim that no one else can feel. Fathers will say it's an unimaginable loss of control. You're small, you're an ant in this huge, ant farm, and you have no power. It's disempowering. You're out of control, and it's a deep sorrow for the loss of someone that you felt was part of your identity. You have to allow yourself to heal through depression instead of coping. You have to process that this is a time of sorrow and that you're going to allow yourself to just rest today and cry it out. You're going to just feel the sorrow until it passes, and it does get better with time. It does get better with time, especially if you allow yourself that sacred space to heal and you have the right tools to help yourself heal. And especially if, again, you've done the healing work before the grief happened, so you're not really healing from an unhealed state. It makes it, I wouldn't say easier, but less difficult for sure. The next step of grief healing is acceptance. There comes a place in time where you're like, it happened and I'm still alive. This happened. I lost my child and I still have to breathe. I still have to eat. I still have to work. I still have to smile. I still have to carry on. That's the first part of acceptance. It doesn't feel good at first, but it is the first part of the acceptance stage of grief healing. That gets better with time. A lot of times we put on a mask or we fake it. We know that we need to just go and have a good time today because we're tired of being sad. And we have this almost like a fake laugh or a fake masking laugh, but it's still good that you got up and you did something for yourself. It will get easier. It will go from a masking sad happiness and fake smile to a real smile one day, to real laughter one day, to real joy again. Okay? So baby steps with your healing, one foot in front of the other. It gets better and better, and the more you build yourself back up. Okay? It gets better with time. So acceptance has phases all of its own. The anger, the depression, all of that has phases of its own. But I think acceptance is something that we really toggle with. And for most psychologists, they'll claim that this is kind of like the final stage of grieving. In this video, I want to talk about a few extra phases that women, I think mothers, go through in the phase journey. Guilt. Many mothers feel an immense amount of guilt. Many fathers feel an immense amount of guilt. And stay tuned, fathers, if you've been drawn to this video and you're still here, I'm going to make a video just for you guys because, again, men do process grief differently. Not to say women more than men. I did say that, but guilt is often experienced as part of the grieving cycle by parents. They say, did I do enough? I should have done. Why did I allow this to happen? It's my fault this happened. Okay, and that's part of the illusion. We have to understand that we choose when we come into Earth, and we also choose when we leave. If you didn't know that, that may help you to feel a sense of peace today. I see this from working with many people around the world. I learned this when I was training, and I see it. I know my life contract. We have an Earth agreement before we come here. Death is negotiable. Within a life contract, there can be several places where one chooses to potentially sign off. We call these departed souls. They leave, they have a death to their body. The soul's eternal. It always goes on. Okay, the soul is unconditional love. It always feels that peace. Okay, it's this realm here where there's that fragment from the infinite love. Okay, so we don't want to feel guilt for the loss of a child. We have to understand that there was a purpose with the passing of the child. That child chose it for a reason. The child chose the identity through you, dear one, for a reason. And the child also chose to exit at the divine timing that he or she did for a higher purpose. Okay? It's not your fault. It is normal to feel guilty. And this is where healing with community comes in, because I think women more naturally, mothers will outreach to supportive groups with other women that have lost children, while men, they don't. They don't tend to want to vocalize how they're feeling. They repress it, they ignore it, and they don't seek help with other men or communities to heal, which can be very, very dangerous. Very dangerous. Lead to unresolved wounds that they carry. So it is important to, I think, at this place, if you do feel guilty or you're struggling at this stage, to get with other women and men, fathers, mothers that have lost children, so that you can hear their stories about, there's a lot we can control in life, but there's also things that we can't control. There's some things that are out of our reach. And often the death of a child is one of those things where if you stay in this stage of guilt, you'll never be able to progress forward on your healing journey. It's not your fault. Everything is on divine timing and sacred agreement. And the best thing for you to do would be to find peace with this and move forward with the rest of your life mission that you've come here to do. Okay. Another phase that I see with parents and mothers especially is identity loss. You don't really lose your identity if you lose your grandma, or, you don't really lose your identity if you lose your dog or your pet or a friend. But when it's your child, there tends to be identity loss, and especially for mothers that, there's this attachment and bond from pregnancy, growing a child for many months inside of you, birthing the child, feeding the child from you. So grief hits mothers differently in that they feel completely an identity loss. Let's say this was a woman's only child or a father's only child. We go from we to I, which will do something to your brain. Your brain has to learn how to grieve. Grief is a teacher that trains your brain and helps you to evolve and learn because your brain will actually have to adapt to going from we did to I. And many women feel a sense of identity as a mother. I hear it over and over. I came into this life to be a mother. I came here to birth my children. I came here to raise my kids. And so many people, many women or mothers, as a form of a phase of grief, will go through identity loss to say, who am I without this role or person? Okay, so one thing to understand that your role and your identity will always be that. You still are a mother. You've just entered a different phase of motherhood, a different stage of motherhood. Just as a woman goes through different stages of womanhood, from pre-puberty to puberty to having menstruation to being in menopause, there's different phases of womanhood. There's different phases of motherhood. And if you can like read books or connect with other women that have lost or be able to understand this sacred phase of being a mother and motherhood, it may help you with identity loss and to know that you don't have to give up that role. You still are a mother. You always will be. And maybe you can channel that nurture to someone else, to an event, to a thing. Let's say we bring more nurture to our work now. We bring more love and compassion here to an orphaned child. We go now and give that motherly love to a pet, to our own job, our own project or creation. You can still carry on that energy. We have to adapt now to another stage of um, motherhood. And if we hold trauma as an identity, we become the trauma. That is also a part of coping. A healthy way to process grief is to be adaptable with the identities that change that come with the grief process. I also think that there's another phase here that I'm putting in is finding meaning and purpose, which I'm calling the integration phase or stage of grief healing for mothers. So once we've gone through the identity loss phase, which is pretty significant, we then can integrate into that next phase of motherhood, that next identity of motherhood. And this is where I feel like the most transformative part happens for women is the integration phase here. Now we find meaning and purpose to the loss. Now we're able to pick ourselves back up and move forward. Now we're able to see the brighter day. We're able to smile again, to eat again, to sleep more peacefully, to be able to wear clothes or put makeup on that help us to feel beautiful again. We don't want to sit in wearing all the black clothes and not doing our hair and not doing our makeup. All of that plays a role on our vibration. So integration phase helps us to put that dress on again, helps us to put the lipstick back on, helps us to go out and have dinner with our girlfriends again, helps us to be able to go watch a movie and laugh finally at a comedy. That's the best part of the grief process is to say the sun does shine again. I am stronger than I ever was before. And I do feel peace in this moment. I do feel happiness in this moment. And then with any kind of energetic exchange, you build from that momentum. And you may have days where you're back in phase two of anger or phase one of denial, and that's okay. But once we go through these phases and have a sense of integration with each phase, this final phase of integration becomes a lot easier. So we have maybe now in 1 month we had 3 bad days, and then the next month we have only one bad day. And then we don't have a bad day the next month at all, in terms of bad day, meaning extreme grief, kind of stuck in a phase or stage. And then the next month we go back, we have 4 bad days. It's okay. Healing isn't linear, but it does get easier with time. And the more and more you prioritize allowing yourself to process and integrate the sacred process of finding peace and wholeness again. Okay. So grief is a response to loss. So even good moments will trigger grief because the loved one is not there and present with you to experience it with you. So let's say you're a mother in your 40s and you lost a child, and then you also went through a divorce right after that. Because what happens when it rains, it pours. And a lot of times we do go through these really painful, shocking, pivotal moments of our lives where everything literally collapses. You've healed from this, you say, to a place of where you're proud of yourself for getting through the loss of a child and then that divorce right after. Then you find love again in your 50s and you get married in your 50s. That wedding can actually be a trigger of grief again for you because you don't have your child there with you. So even the happy times can feel like grief, and that is also normal. It's healthy to feel like I miss this person. It's okay to miss your loved one. You may always feel a sense of missing or longing or yearning for that physical essence of your child. And if we can have support when we go into that marriage, and or have a supportive partner that understands what you've gone through, it will be a lot easier to go through that marriage, feel the grief, and know, that your loved one got you, that you can express your pain, your sadness that day, and still be allowed to smile at the same time. Okay? So grief takes time and grieving takes time, and you may always go through like happy times and feel sad. That's okay too. Where we don't want to get stuck is the panic, the confusion, the rumination, and the constant memory recall. If you feel that there is something you need to get healing with in terms of like more back to that therapy phase, you should do that where you're doing things that help your body and your brain and heart to heal because those are typically in the womb for the mother are the most affected. So mothers tend to actually call off work more and than fathers would. Men tend to use work as a coping mechanism to the grief of a child. Women will also feel it more in their bodies, but also are more likely to go towards medication to help them to heal. So understand again how this is affecting your physical body, your brain and heart, and understand that grief healing is an evolutionary and learning process. So I'm going to go over some um, things that will help us to move forward is grief with as a mother. So if we talk about the integration and finding purpose and meaning and peace again, one thing that can help you is if you think of a dream or a goal or a desire of something that is available physically or tangibly that you can get or have and make a plan to go get that, to go towards that direction, towards that desire, that dream. Okay? Stay in touch with people who make you happy or smile. One thing you can do if you don't have anybody is put your hand on your heart and breathe into your heart. Take your awareness into your heart, your intention into your heart. You may automatically start to laugh, feel joy, or smile again. So you may need to do this a lot to help you to get into your heart, to help you to heal. But staying in touch with people or going into safe spaces will help you as well. I'll also say post a comment here on my channel. Post a prayer request. I'll pray for you. I'll lift you up. This sanctuary here, if you have nobody, JoJo Empathic is a sanctuary. So you can comment on my post and I'll always get back to you. And that may help you to feel a sense of connection. Okay. So find safe spaces that help you to feel loved and connection. I think working out and exercising is major just in life in general to maintain your energy balance, but also when you're grieving. A lot of times when we have a lot of grief, again, it affects us physically in our muscles, bones, our body, and organs. So we don't even want to get out of bed. We can't even get out of bed. We can't get out of the couch. We can't even show up to work. So if we get into exercise, even just going for a walk, going for a walk in nature on a trail, unplugging from social media, get your body moving, reconnect with nature. Again, grief is stored in the body, so have some sort of somatic release. Breath work is something you can do in bed. You don't even have to get out of bed. And once you do the breath work routine, you may be able to get up out of bed and take a shower. So, breath work is how we push energy through our body. It's free and it's available. It doesn't take too much energy to do it. And it also helps you to have more energy. So, alkaline breaths, breath holds, fire breaths, all of this will help you to process your pain, your grief, and also to help you to have more energy and to think a little bit clearer. You can also get massages, will help you to push energy through your body instead of storing it. This is a big one. Spiritual connection. This is also free. So you can connect with your loved one through rituals, prayers, or mediumship. Talk to your loved ones on the other side. Write letters, create altars. It is a myth that mediums are gifted, or some mediums do have anointings, I'll say. Yes. But we all are a channel. We all are a body, and we all are a soul that has this body. We all have senses that help us not to just see in this third dimensional earth realm, but beyond. And most of us do, and we've closed them off in childhood because we feel that's the right thing to do. Intuition is a skill. It can be developed and it should be. And intuition and intuitive senses are how we connect with the other side. So a lot of times we want to dream about our loved one right away, especially mothers, and they don't hear from their loved ones for many years in dreams. This is very difficult. Sometimes they'll come to mediums and they can't connect with their deceased child. I think this happens often because a lot of mothers that are grieving are not yet ready to hear from the other side. They're not yet ready to process that their child's actually in love and happy and no pain. That can be hard to even bear when you're in a certain stage of grief. So I have read mothers where it just feels cut off. And I think that's because the person isn't ready to all the way hear or to process or to move forward. And that's okay too. So you have to go with your own timeline. But when you begin to connect through prayer, altars, writing letters, receiving the signs and symbols, having the communication with the loved one on the other side, it really does bring a sense of peace, closure, and understanding to why it happened. And you're like, okay, my child is eternal light. My child is choosing another life. My child's going on and creating this. Now I can find peace and now I can go on and also create more peace, create more love, and create as well from a place of wholeness that mediumship really helps us to have. You also want to make sure that you're moving forward with love and not guilt. I talked about this before. Moving forward doesn't mean forgetting. You carry your loved one with you, not as pain, but as presence. So grief will break you open, but it's what you do with that opening is where your power lies. Okay? So not allowing this instance that where you feel completely broken to stay there, but to be in this vulnerable space is some of where our most powerful creation will exist from this. Okay. So grief is not an ending, it's a turning point into the next chapter. You can begin to get into chakra opening and balancing, working on your own energy field, getting Reiki, energy healing, looking into the heart chakra, making sure you're really catering to your heart, your womb, your sacral chakra, you're healing these aspects of yourself, your brain, your third eye chakra, your crown. Sound healing will also help. Listening to music that helps you to process, helps you to heal. Different binaural beats, different frequencies can uplift you and bring you into a higher frequency. It does move matter. Sound moves matter. I think if you were to sing or dance or laugh, throat chakra, all of this, that also helps us to process grief and move energy. Create, channel art. This is very, very helpful for healing anger or processing anger as well as grief. To create something now, to explain. I think this goes into hand in hand with share your story is very creative. It's part of a creative aspect of healing. Put your story to paper, make a book, make a journal, go speak somewhere, go sit in a circle and share your story. All of these are forms of healing that we can do that use our throat chakra to communicate and express how we're really feeling, share our story that uplifts someone else, that gives someone else hope. If I can go through the loss of my child, pick myself up and become the best version of myself, so can you. And that might be the guiding light for someone who is suffering, not to say let more than you ever did, but suffering nonetheless. Connect with salt water, whether this is a salt bath or going to like uh, a mineral wells spa, standing on Epsom salt in the shower. Connect with salt water. It is so cleansing and detoxifying. You know, when you're eating food during grief, remember that, you know, you're charging your food with that energy. You're charging the water that you drink with that energy. So be very intentional if you can with how you're eating, the food you're eating, the water you're drinking, when you feel like you can eat, because a lot of times we feel like we can't eat. Um, And so salt is a way of purification of the toxins within you, the food that is blocking you. So take this time as a detox, just like a Kundalini detox to help you grieve. Appreciate your strengths, realizing that you're not weak. Appreciate your strengths, realizing that you didn't mess up. Appreciate your strengths, knowing that you did all that you could do. You did the best you could do. Connect with people or pets. Pets is what I meant to say. Pets. Connect with pets or animals. Okay. We always hear pet therapy or animal therapy. Animals are empathic. They work with angels. They can heal you. They can help you to detox. Where I was saying with people, connecting with people, understand that grieving is a universal experience. So when we connect with other people, other women or mothers that have lost children, knowing that it's a universal experience of grief, that we can have a hand with someone else that knows what we're going through is part of the healing process. It may be helpful for you to forgive somebody during this time because we don't want to carry on unresolved wounds or burdens, especially unforgiveness in our heart. Read books, plan a vacation, or relax without guilt. This is about your presence and stillness. Remember, there's no past, there's no future, there's only present time in the quantum field. So we may need a vacation, but we'll feel guilty to feel that peace and relaxation because we've lost a child. Plan the vacation, plan rest, plan stillness without guilt. Plan something that will help you to enjoy life again, to feel the freedom again, to feel the expansion again versus the restriction that a lot of times mothers that are grieving feel, but without guilt. If you continue to do good things for yourself with guilt, every time will become a burden to love yourself again. It'll be a burden to love life. Okay? And also cleanse your space. Get into the practice of detachment. Remember that you are an eternal soul. Remember that life goes on after death. Remember that it's healthy to detox, to detach, and to let go of things maybe around the house that are holding on to energy that doesn't help our growth. Okay, so cleansing of the space may help you to feel more of a freedom at home and be more of a clean sanctuary for you to have this sacred space of healing. And one of the last things I want to touch on is holidays. We've lost a child and then their birthday or a holiday comes around, this can feel incredibly painful. It's important that you still allow yourself to celebrate holidays, their birthdays as days of remembrance, channeling their presence, holding space for their presence, and knowing that they are still with you and they still visit you, and that they, if anything, want you to not feel sorrow. They want you to continue with the mission you've come here to do. And many appreciate you, dear mothers, appreciate you for all that you've given of your body, of your soul, of your mind to their creation. Your creation was not stopped, it continues. It's part of a larger whole. Celebrate the loss of your child through remembrance days, through, again, holding the sacred space of presence and appreciation for this earth realm, the ebbs and flows that there are. Be of service, give to someone else, and help uplift someone else that may be suffering as well. And I hope this was helpful. If you have a prayer request, you can drop it in the comments here. I do want to hear from you. Like, you can leave feedback. You can come here and drop a comment if you ever just want, to be lifted up and to know you're not alone and that I hear you and see you. And you can also book a reading with me. I offer evidential mediumship, as well as spiritual development or healing sessions to help assist you in the grieving process. I've also been trained in grief healing to use mediumship as a very helpful ancient. Our ancestors used this as a tool to help us with closure and peace and moving forward. The biggest message here to take home is that you are meant to move forward. You are meant to not let go and not remember, but to be able to process and never forget and to move forward with peace. That is your birthright. And I'm sending a lot of love to you, women, and I hope to hear from you. Thank